Hello everyone. Happy Friday to you and welcome to Live in the D Extra, where we continue the conversations from Live in the D, which airs right here on Local 4 at 10 a.m. on Monday through Friday. And joining me is Scott Carty from Carty Capital Management. Thanks for hanging out with us again.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about 5 big-time credit card mistakes that people make.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
Tell me a
yesterday
little
was
bit about
National
that.
Credit Report Day, so
Okay.
we're going to talk a little bit about how to fix up your credit. And because credit cards are such an important part of that, and really probably the one we abuse the most, we're really going to focus on that today.
Sometimes it feels like people see credit cards as free money. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, we don't really realize that it's a loan, that we're getting charged to use that. So it is, there's a lot of mistakes that we make with our credit cards,
Okay.
not just the interest.
All right.
The average person in the U.S. pays $1,300 in interest every single year on their credit card.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. Just interest.
Just interest. So the average interest rate for credit cards in 2017 is 15.59%.
Yikes.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of good people that, not that people that don't pay it off every month, a lot of people that do pay it off every month and don't get charged that interest.
Right.
But the average is $1,300. That's huge.
That is
That's a lot
huge.
of money.
I remember one time watching an interview with Warren Buffett, the Uber billionaire that we all know of, and he made a comment he's like, I can't afford to borrow money at 15%, so I don't know why people use credit cards.
Right, and that's the average. There's a lot of credit cards that are a lot higher than that.
Yeah, I've heard people having 30%. And, okay, so it gets kind of crazy, but let's get into the questions, right? So let's get into the first one, which is...
Yeah, so the first question, and we talked about these, is how many fees are tied to the average credit card?
Okay, how
And I
many
gave you a couple of
fees?
options.
Right.
2, 6, or 12.
Okay, so I'll be honest, I was stuck on this question because I figured the fee is your interest rate. What other fee could there possibly be included in there? Tax? I was really confused. So what we did is we also put these questions out on Twitter to ask you guys what you think. So let's look at the Twitter poll really quickly. I thought maybe 2 max, but let's see what people said on the Twitter. We'll get to that in a second. Because isn't this also something that people might not know about? Like that there's actually more than one fee?
Right, that's exactly why we're talking about it, because most people like yourself think it's just interest and there aren't any other fees. So, yeah, there are quite a few fees.
Okay.
And we'll come back to that because it doesn't seem to be showing up. But the answer is actually 6.
Okay, so here's the thing. 40% of people thought 2, like I would think. Only 20% of people thought 6. And 40% of people thought 12. I think 12 might be a little excessive, but I would have never thought that the actual answer is 6.
Yeah.
What are those?
Well, there's late fees, cash advance fees, returned payment,
Okay.
balance transfers, foreign transactions. If you're out of the country, you actually get charged a percentage. And then over the limit fees. So if you go over your credit limit, they charge you for that as well.
Okay. That's crazy.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
There are a lot of credit cards that charge even more fees than that, but the average for most of the credit cards are those 6. So just be careful of those 6. The biggest one is the late fee. Okay, so if you don't make your payment on time, any payment, even just your minimum, if you don't make that, they could charge you as much as $37
Wow.
every single month that you're late.
And that's even if you're late one day, you're going to hit that late fee, right?
Yeah. So let's put this in perspective. $37 doesn't sound like a lot, but if every single month you're late, and I'm going to use $30 because it makes the math easy on me. So if you're late one day, every single month, that's $30 a month. That's $360 a year on top of the $1,300 you're already giving them in interest. That's a lot of money that you're giving away to the credit card.
So we're up to $1,600, $1,700 before we've even started touching the principal on the money, which is the amount of money that you actually charged and borrowed.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
The average household in America is in debt, credit card debt, between $16,000 and $17,000. It's no wonder that we can't pay that off with all of the additional fees that are tacked on.
And that's the sneaky thing is the fees, because you think you're paying, you know, maybe you're having a tough time here or there and you're thinking, oh, I can make the payment a couple days late, but you're losing in that process. That's tough. All right, so let's get to the second big mistake that people are making with credit cards.
Yeah, so the second one is sort of along the lines of the first one, but it's missing payments. Okay? So this is a true or false question.
Okay.
Missing a credit card payment can negatively affect your credit score. True or false?
Okay, so I'll tell you, this one is tricky too, and I'll say it for this reason. How does being over 30 days late impact your credit score? You know what I mean? So I started getting into that. You know how, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but sometimes they say as long as you don't allow it to go over 30 days, you're okay?
Right. So this is where it gets tricky because there is that grace period, and every card is different.
Okay.
Okay, so your card may say 15 days, another card may say 30 days. You have to be really careful, and a lot of times it's in the fine print, which none of us are very good about reading.
No, who's going to read that? It's like 15 pages of print that's this small, and it's no one goes through it, let's be honest, right? Okay, so let's go to Twitter and let's see what all of our people on. Wow, so missing a credit card payment can negatively affect your score. 91% of people say that it's true. Is it true?
It is true.
Okay.
So if you miss one payment, it will absolutely go on your credit report, which affects your credit score. And your credit score is so important because it affects the interest rate that you pay on a home mortgage, when you buy a car, even when you rent an apartment. So it's so important that you don't miss a payment.
Okay, so not only will it increase your interest with that credit card company, but it'll impact when you're trying to apply for other credit.
And here's why. Because when you miss a payment, it will stay on your credit report for up to 10 years. 10 years just by missing it by 30 days.
That's a lot. So, wow, that's crazy. Okay, so that's why I thought that was a trick question. Obviously, you guys are a lot smarter than me on that one. But let's get into the third mistake.
The third mistake is cash advances.
Okay.
So what makes taking a cash advance so expensive? And we gave you a couple of options. ATM fees, higher interest, no grace period, cash advance fees themselves, or E, all of the above.
Okay. I thought this was a trick question too, and I'll tell you why. Because ATM fees, I felt like you don't really put your credit card in the ATM machine, do you? Or you can? Okay. I missed that. Maybe that's a good thing.
And that's why we're talking about it.
Right, okay. So you can actually put your credit card in an ATM.
Yes, and get cash out of it.
Okay.
Right.
I didn't know that. All right, let's go to Twitter. Now, when I did put this out, there was not enough space to do all of the above. But here are the responses that we got. So 72% of people think it's high interest. 6% of people said ATM fees. Okay, so those are my people. That's my tribe of people who are like, who takes a credit card to the ATM? But that's possible. No one thought grace period, and 22% of people thought cash advance fees.
Yeah.
So what's the right answer?
Oh, well, they're all right.
Okay.
Because all of those things happen with a cash advance. So if you use an ATM to get cash out using your credit card, you're going to get hit with an ATM fee.
Okay.
You're going to get hit with a cash advance fee because you're taking cash out using your credit card.
From your own credit card company?
From your credit card company.
Okay.
Yep.
Yikes.
There is no grace period, so as soon as you take that cash out, you're going to be hit with higher interest.
Wow.
The average is 24% for a cash advance. I've seen it as high as 36%. So all of those things will affect you if you take out a cash advance. Okay. So be very careful. I would say don't take out a cash advance using your credit card. But if you have to, just be aware of all of the different ways that your company and the ATM is going to charge you.
Wow. Okay, so the ATM, that was tricky. That's something that I learned because I didn't think people went up to an actual machine for the cash advance. You know how you get those little checks in the mail? Hey, just fill this out and deposit that. That's what I thought everyone did. I guess I didn't know how that worked. And the grace period part kind of caught me off guard too. I thought that the interest would start accruing after the 30 days.
Right, so it's not like when you make your credit card payment, you have those 30 days during the month to not be charged.
Right.
With a cash advance, they charge you right away.
Okay, good to know. I did not know that. That was a big surprise to me. So basically, though, your advice would be avoid taking out the cash advance if at all possible.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because that just adds to the fees that we've already talked about are adding up.
Yeah, and it snowballs, clearly.
It really does.
Clearly. Okay, so let's get to the next mistake about credit cards.
So how many credit cards should the average person have?
Okay, so with this one, I felt like 0 and none was absolutely a wrong answer because you need something to build a credit history, right? But then when it said what B or C, 3 or 10, I couldn't really pick between the two because I thought maybe if you had 10, then that meant you weren't using up as much of your available credit. And maybe that could help you out a little bit in your credit score.
Okay.
But then...
We're going to talk about that in a second.
Okay, we're going to get to... Okay, so I'm just using all my, like, wanna-be a financial expert mind here because you know how I love talking about this stuff. Okay, so I really couldn't figure this one out. So let's just go straight to Twitter and let's see what people thought. Okay. 82% of people thought that it was 3. 11% thought 0. Only 7% thought 10. So no one's on the same page with me as far as that's concerned. So what is the right answer?
It is 3. The average person in the U.S. has just under 3 credit cards.
Okay.
All right. I've seen a lot of credit card experts say you should have between 3 and 5.
Okay.
I'm more of the opinion between 1 and 3.
Okay.
Because I think it's too easy to get in trouble with credit cards. 3 is still somewhat manageable. You know, you can track your finances, you can track the interest rate that you're paying and all the additional fees that we've talked about. I think once you get above 3, you really get into that area where you can't manage it. And it's so important to keep track of your finances, including your credit cards, because it's such a big part of your credit score.
Right. You're right. I could see how that could get out of hand really quickly.
Yeah.
Really quickly, especially even with all the payments. Technically, you could have like a different payment coming in, you know, due every single week.
Yeah.
In that kind of, in that sense. Okay.
And especially when you look at all the department stores and their credit cards too, it could be easy to get up into that 10 range. Actually, I saw the record for the most credit cards. Do you have any idea what the record for most credit cards by one person is?
By one person?
One person.
23.
It was actually 1,497.
No way.
Some guy in California.
What?
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm surprised he got approved. That's impossible. Who kept approving you for a credit card? Like,
I don't know.
That's crazy.
So
that's insane. So
I
just
think
keep the number down.
The other part of that is there's the way that your credit report is calculated. They really used to look at credit utilization ratio.
Okay, what does that mean?
Right. Let's simplify that.
Okay.
So how much credit are you using compared to how much you have available?
Okay.
Okay, and really that ratio should be somewhere between 30 and 35% or below.
Okay.
Okay, I saw differing statistics.
Okay.
But really you want to try to stay below 30%.
Okay.
Okay, the other thing they look at is the average time that your credit accounts have been open.
Okay.
So you really want longer history for your credit accounts when you're looking at your credit report.
Okay.
Okay. Lately they've been changing that, and they use this thing called trended data. Okay, and that is, without getting too boring, that could be a lot of different things. But how that's important for us is now they're looking at the amount of credit you have available and larger amounts of credit, like those people with larger amounts of credit, they look at those negatively now.
Really?
So that is changing.
Okay, so the theory that I had is kind of, it used to be true, or you know, you would hear of those kind of stories and that it's helpful, but now you're saying that that's not a good thing. Why?
Well, I think it's changed a lot in the last decade because here's why credit cards have become so popular, is our incomes haven't kept up with inflation. Cost of living adjustments, gas, groceries, utilities. Okay, so we've been forced really to use more credit cards in the past 10 years, and now the credit reporting agency is looking more negatively on people that have large amounts of debt available to them, large amounts of credit available to them.
Okay.
So it's something that we need to kind of balance and be aware of.
So they're looking at us and saying, look, we know your salary is not keeping up with inflation. The price of everything is going up 5%. You only get a 2% raise. I know you can't keep up with this. So if you have a lot of available credit, I know you're going to end up using it and you're a credit risk.
And I think this has changed since 2007, 2008 when we saw the crash. We saw so many people losing their jobs and the mortgage issues that happened then. So that's why you're seeing more of a shift into how much credit is available to this person. What happens if they start to use all of that credit?
Okay. I mean, this is the kind of, so how would a layperson like myself find this information out? You wouldn't.
Right.
Like, you need to hear this kind of information. All right. Good to know. Good to know. So let's talk about our credit score.
Right. So how often should you be checking your credit score? Every 6 months? Every year? Or never? Just kind of bury your head and ignore it?
Okay. I would not say C. I would not say never. It would be between A and B. These are my original thoughts. But the other cool thing, so okay, I have a question for you following this.
Okay.
I would say either every 6 months or every year. I would say every 6 months because you always hear about these hacking things, and we recently had the Equifax issue. So I would probably say every 6 months. Okay, so let's see what Twitter said. All right, 75% of people agree with me every 6 months, 21% say every year, and there's a funny, comical 4% of people who say never. So
right, those are the people that don't want to ever see it.
Right, they don't want to deal with it. So
really every year is sufficient unless something like this Equifax issue comes up.
Okay.
I just pulled my credit reports a couple weeks ago because of that. Just to take a look at, make sure everything is accurate on there, make sure there's no mistakes, and everything is up to date. So it's important at least every year to do that, unless there's a reason that you need to pull it more often. So you can go to the 3 major bureaus. I would say you pull it from everyone, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion.
Individually?
Yes.
Okay.
So pull them, make sure they all look similar. There's a little bit of discrepancy between them, and that's okay. But you want it to be pretty close.
All right, so because the numbers will be different on each of the credit scores, too. They're not all going to say the same thing necessarily, right?
Correct. So your credit score ranges between 300 and 850.
Okay.
And a good score is going to be 700 and above.
Okay.
And a good score is important because it's going to factor how much interest you pay on a home mortgage, on car loans, and even renting an apartment. So you could literally save thousands of dollars by having a good credit score compared to someone that doesn't have
a good credit score. Okay. So in our notes that I got from you, said 30% of Americans don't even know what that credit score is. So that's part of the people who are part of that 4% never.
Bury your head.
Right. Why do you think people do that?
My guess is they don't want to see what's on it. They're afraid of what it could say. I think we've all made some bad financial choices in the past, and you're afraid that it's still going to be on there.
Right.
And that's the hard part about your credit report is things stay on there for a long time. But that's why it's so important to keep looking at it and make sure that everything is correct, that things that shouldn't be on there any longer get pushed off, and that, really, nowadays it's so scary with the identity theft. You want to make sure that someone hasn't stolen your identity and done something fun that you didn't get to do.
On your credit, exactly.
Right. And a lot of the younger generation, the millennials, the Gen Y, aren't looking at this. So the numbers, this 30% number that we talked about, is actually the average of everyone. If we look at just that generation, it's actually quite a bit lower.
Do you think that has to do with like student loans? Because I know a lot of people who are avoiding looking at that student loan balance because maybe they've been paying on it for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and in some cases it's actually gone up, the amount that they owe.
Right.
I think that that's part of the stress for that, age group, I would say.
I definitely think that could be part of it. I think some of it is they just don't know any better. They've never been informed of it.
Well, that's interesting you should say that because I put this out on Facebook that we would be discussing this topic, and someone replied and said, we should learn more about this in school.
I agree. We don't teach that stuff anymore. I guess schools and teachers feel like it should be taught at home, and people at home think it should be taught in schools. So the result is nobody teaches about it.
And then you go to college and you get a free t-shirt for signing up for a credit card.
Right.
And that's your introduction into building your credit history.
Right, and you rack up all this debt, and then the interest kicks in, and then fees kick in, and all of a sudden you're $17,000 in debt trying to figure out how you're going to pay it off. So, especially for students that don't even have a job.
Exactly.
So that's where it gets a little sticky.
Okay, so give us like one bit of advice, one takeaway that we can have to keep ourselves on the right track, because the holidays are right around the corner, and that's also a time where people are going to rack up debt trying to have a nice Christmas and holiday time.
I don't think you're going to like my answer. I don't think people are going to like my answer. So
it's all right. This is a tough love. Like, I want you to keep it real with us.
It's all about budgeting.
Right.
It's about knowing how much you can spend. Very simply look at how much income you have coming in and how much expenses you have going out. Okay, especially for the holidays, really you want to kind of create a holiday budget worksheet. Who are you buying presents for? How much can you spend on each of those people so that you don't get into massive amount of debt during the holiday season. So I think it's just about making subtle tweaks, subtle strategies that you put in place now. If you spend 15 minutes every week just looking at your finances, looking over your credit card statement, your bills that you have will go a long way.
Right, right.
So don't bury your head in the sand and hope things are going to be okay.
Right. And embrace the B word, budget.
Right.
Embrace it. Don't be afraid of it.
Well, you're the one that creates the budget, so
right.
you can, put whatever you want on there, but you have to also look at how much money you have coming in too. So I guess it's about being financially responsible.
Okay. And be bold and courageous. I will say that, because it takes a lot of courage to say, you know what, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to look at my money situation and I'm going to start doing something about it. I think once you get into it, it's easier to start making the changes. And this is coming from personal experience. So go for it. Be bold, be courageous, go after your finances. You know what? If you want to send Scott some questions, feel free to send them to me. I'll forward them to you. Maybe we can answer some viewer questions sometime.
Yeah, we have some information on cartycapital.com.
Absolutely.
If you want to take a look there. There's also a really good financial calculator as far as credit cards and the interest rate that you're going to pay, and you can kind of play around with that calculator and see what you're paying now versus if you started to pay some of that off, what it would look like too. So that's at Carty Capital.
cartycapital.com. Scott Carty, thank you so much for hanging out with us on Live in the D Extra.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, you guys have a great weekend, and let me know how all this budgeting stuff goes. I want to hear from you. Hopefully it goes well. Like we said, holidays are right around the corner, so let's get it together now. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, have a great weekend, guys. Bye.